With week 10 of the college football season rapidly approaching us, there are several teams that have found their ways into the top 10, but there are also other teams looking to find their ways into the top 5 and possibly to the top spot. Want to find out who these teams are and how they stack up? Stay tuned to find out on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. As you all well know, I am Mr. CeeLo. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's been a pretty intense college football season with a slew of games this week that may raise your eyebrows, and then there are a few that just kind of make you go, nah. But it's been a great season, and I must tell you, it's been a lot of fun watching as Navy did fall out, and it's going to be fun coming down to the end of it all. And we got a couple of weeks left before they start making the decisions on who is in and who is out. But I'm not a baseball fan, but I want to give my congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Not a Dodgers fan, but congrats anyway, because there's some of you guys out there who might be Dodgers fans. Brad, I already know you ain't. Let's go ahead and get this out the way because my man Brad's always got to put his 2 cents in, but I'm very grateful for him, and I'm grateful for any of y'all that put your 2 cents in. Please add it. Brad adds on and says, SMU had me on the end of my seat. Absolutely, my friend. It was a great game. Kelly looked lost on the sidelines. Yes, he did. Just to let you guys know, I had a huge issue with my drive, so there were a few things on the last edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option that I was not able to put in, so you guys forgive me. If it seems like there were certain things in the show that did not make sense, my hard drive went down in the middle of shooting, so that's why. Yeah, Kelly's looked lost, and I know a lot of people are saying that maybe that's what was wrong in South Bend, but I'm not going to put that on him. I just always looked at it as Kelly had issues as far as the big games, and he's always had trouble finishing big games. Oh, by the way, guys, disclaimer, my mic went out because the wiring that I have to go and get another wire. Did not have time to do that. I will have to go out of town and get that, but I will have that fixed before the next show. But thank you guys for being patient, as the sound on this one's going to be, the quality's not going to be nearly as good. So, but just bear with me, you guys. What, spill it out? Is that what you're saying? Spill it out, split it out. Yep, he says, sorry, Natasha. Laughing my off Texas A&M. Why have you not been playing 10 all year? LSU didn't have an answer for 10. That's exactly right. This kid is just electrifying. And I got a feeling, I wouldn't start him. I would definitely stay with Connor Wigman. I'm not a guy that is up with that flip-flopping thing, but in this situation, in my opinion, I say you stay with Connor Wigman because the reality of it is he is the senior or the upperclassman. I still think there's some things that he needs to learn, but I think he throws such an exceptional deep ball, you'd have to change the entire offense. Now, I know Brad would agree with me in saying change the offense. But back to what Brad also said later on, he said, ND still rocks. I knew you'd come around. Bruh. I'm not a fan of Lane Kiffin either, brother. And no, I'm not. And if you watch the show, you've seen I've never been a fan of Lane Kiffin. Just have not. I'm sorry. I mean, we can say we can call it what we want. I'm just not a fan of his. Not a fan of his. Colorado sucks. I'm not going to say they suck. I'm just not on their bandwagon because they haven't beaten anybody. You know, they just haven't. And I'm not going to be on that bandwagon until they beat somebody. And I don't care if anybody gets in the comments and says they beat who's on their schedule. Fine. That doesn't mean you should be a 2-loss team sitting in the top 25. End of story. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this wonderful show, I got to go ahead and I got to say that you guys have to continue to put your name down in there if you subscribe to the show. Also, if you go to the Facebook page, Gridiron Gab Triple Option, make sure that you put your comments down there. Also, give us some ideas. So if there's a certain show you want to see or us analyze, please do so. But let's get into the top 25 participants in week number 10. Starting with number 24, Illinois, 6-2 Illinois against 5-3 Minnesota. Now, this game is going to be one of those games where I look at Illinois and I say, okay, this was a team that, look at their schedule, and this is the team that has won a close one in Lincoln, and they really kind of just eat their way through, and Oregon walloped them last week. So I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking, okay, if the Illini can do what they've been doing, which is move the football, I'm not going to say that this is a football team that can, light it up. They have the potential to light it up being that they're home, but Luke Altmaier was not good last week. The reality is, this is a guy that's been sacked 23 times. This is one of those teams that's at the bottom. They're going to stay relatively at the bottom, but you're looking at two receivers in Pat Bryant and Franklin. If they can get loose, and surprisingly, I can't believe I'm saying this, and slow the pace of the game down, because the Minnesota Golden Gophers have been a surprisingly good football team. They just have not gotten a lot of press. I mean, you're looking at a team whose only 2 losses came to Michigan and came at Michigan, and they lost in Minneapolis to USC a couple of weeks ago, 24-17. But we all know what Minnesota likes to do. This is one of those games, and I'm going to be honest with you. They're 5-3, and Darius Taylor has over 513 yards running the football, but Max Brosmer has over almost 1,800 yards passing the football, 12 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. But here's the true blue decision in this game. Now, I believe that Minnesota has every notion to win this football game in the upset, because they've gotten better as the weeks have gone on. They blew out Maryland last week, and they beat UCLA a couple of weeks ago in Pasadena. So my apologies, you guys. I said that they lost to USC. No, they beat USC. They lost at Michigan, and they lost at Iowa, and they lost to North Carolina in their opener. But I'm going to take the Minnesota Golden Gophers in a slow-paced kind of game. I think Minnesota comes out and they inflict their will on Illinois, and they're able to pull off the victory in this game. I know, Brad. Next, we got the number 21 Army Black Knights versus the 1-6 Air Force Falcons. Now, I'm going to just say it like this. As much as this is a game right here that I don't have to talk very much about. I think this is just going to be a beatdown. I think Army goes and they just straight wallop and get their 12th straight victory in this series and get ready for Notre Dame. And then we've got number 19 Ole Miss versus 5-3 Arkansas. Now, as I said, Lane Kiffin once again is showing me, has got an opportunity to show me that he can beat a quality football team. Because now we have Arkansas, who's been a really tough football team when it comes to facing off against teams that come into Fayetteville. And when you face off against the team in their building, against the team in their building, they're exceptionally tough to beat. And they've had a very willing defense that's willing to go out and put that thing down when they have to. So for that reason, I'm going to take Ole Miss in a close one. I think Jackson Dart finds a way to get it done. And I think, honestly, it's not because of Lane Kiffin. It's going to be because Jackson Dart's just a little bit more talented than what the Arkansas Razorbacks have in their stable. Then there's number 17, Kansas State versus Houston. I don't think there's anything self-explanatory about this. I think Kansas State runs the football, and they're able to run all over Houston. Then we got number 15, Ashton Jonty, and the Boise State Broncos versus the San Diego State Aztecs. I don't think there's any idea, any clue as to what's going to happen. I think everybody knows what's going to happen with this football game. The only question is how much of a factor is Jonty going to be? Because they're 6-1. Do they keep pushing for his bid to win the Heisman, or do they continue to push towards getting a shot at the playoff and staying healthy for that playoff push? Next, we have number 13, undefeated, number 13, Indiana, against 4-4 Michigan State in Lansing. Well, Indiana's looking for its very first 9-0 start. Now, the question is going to be as to whether or not Indiana's offense is going to be able to do what it's been doing, and is Michigan State offense going to be able to muster up some points, or muster up enough points, because we've looked at this team and we've seen the most points they've scored in a game was 32 against Iowa. Now, it's gonna take a lot of points for them to do this against Indiana. Indiana's not a team that is no slouch when it comes to putting up points. They're going to have to put the points up. They're going to have to come out, and they're going to have to score. As I said, this is a team that's put up 77 in a game. They've put up 31 against Washington, 56 against Nebraska. So this is a team that is no stranger to putting points up. And for that reason, I look to see Indiana go for its first 9-0 season in its school history. Next, we got this is probably one of the most underrated matchups of the week in Clemson and Louisville. This game right here should make the Clemson Tigers shudder like they just saw Carol Baskin.
Stop the cap.
But, Louisville is one of those teams that they, up until they faced Notre Dame and they lost these couple of games back to back, they are a football team that is very scary, led by Tyler Shook. This is a guy that is very, very streaky. And he's quietly one of the best quarterbacks in the country at 20 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. To me, he's one of those guys that he doesn't get talked about a lot because he's not so flashy. He's one of those guys that goes about, does his job, and can really efficiently throw the football in a lot of different areas. I love the way he's able to stay composed when things break down. He's really got a lot of mobility, and it's shocking that when Jack Plummer was there last year that this guy wasn't starting. And I think Shook is going to do a lot of things. To me, arguably, Clemson's going to face the best quarterback they faced since they faced Georgia. I don't think there's any doubt that there's not another quarterback that they're going to face this season, unless they make it to the ACC title game, that is going to be equivalent to the skill set that Shook brings to the table. And, of course, Shook brings to the party. Then you've got Isaac Brown, who's right at 6'9", but Ja'Cory Brooks is a active wide receiver. He's very, very much a dangerous run-after-catch type of player. And you definitely don't want to end up in a situation where you're seeing this guy coming at your secondary in one-on-one situations, because he's very good in the open field. But you saw them kind of get a little dashed against Virginia. And in that Wake Forest game, don't let the margin of victory fool you. This game was not as big a blowout as many of you would look at the score and think. Wake Forest was in that game, and they had opportunities to win it. I watched that game back to front. But ultimately, this game is at Clemson, and I will tell you, I think this is going to be one of those games. Louisville gets a shot, but much like the SMU game, I think what eventually happens is that this football team is just really too much for them. I'm looking at 2 of Louisville's losses, and they were neck and neck. The Miami loss and the SMU loss. These are 2 games that easily could have went the other way. I mean, even the Notre Dame game, even though it didn't seem that way, Louisville tacked on a touchdown late to make that score look a lot more appeasing. But in the Miami SMU game, it was back and forth. It was back and forth. And as I said, it would not surprise me if another situation like this happened and Clemson pulls this game out. But it could also go the other way. So this is Mr. CeeLo's rock in a hard place pick. So, but if I had to choose, if I had to select which one, I'm going to go with the Louisville Cardinals because they have not had that upset yet. So I'm kind of flip-flopping here, but I'm going to go with Louisville. Number 10, Texas A&M versus 4-3 South Carolina. Look, South Carolina had their scare. All they got to do if they want to win this game, and they being the Texas A&M Aggies, I don't know all y'all know what I'm about to say. All of you guys know where I am going with this. All the Texas A&M Aggies have to do if they want to win this football game is start Marcel Reed. That's all they got to do. That's their guy. And the way what he brings to the party is so different than a lot of read option quarterbacks. This is a guy, he can literally carve you up on the ground, and then all of a sudden you think, okay, read option. And then he just heaves one down the field. He throws a beautiful floating deep ball. And if that's not the worst thing you have to deal with, you got to deal with this guy pitching the ball and doing a good job of getting the ball out of the bed. I mean, everybody sits and thinks that's easy. It is not. He has a handle on that last minute pull, and he does it so well. So if anybody wants to question whether or not this guy knows what he's doing, and this A&M defense has really come on. So I don't even know why I'm going into this. We already know what's up. I'm taking Texas A&M over them easily. This is not going to be one of those matchups that you even have to discuss. But I gotta give a gab out to my buddy Derek Jackson at Kentucky because they will be going into Knoxville. I think this will be a good game for about 2 or 3 quarters. My man Jackson's going to play and do his thing. Gab out to you, Dublin's finest. But I think ultimately Heupel and Iamaleava are going to get the best of this. Don't think that this game won't be close, but it's not going to be close enough. I think what happens is Iamaleava gets in a good groove. Heupel is able to break down Kentucky defensively, and ultimately they're going to get the win. I think they end up blowing the doors off of them. No disrespect, and that is what it is. Then you got the 6-2 Duke Blue Devils that face off against the number 5 undefeated Miami Hurricanes. That sounds really good. Number 5 versus unranked 2-loss team. It's going to be the matchup of dual quarterbacks. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Heisman Trophy candidate Cam Ward, he's just that guy. And to me, the Duke Blue Devils, whom are 7th in the ACC, crazy if you think about it. Malik Murphy is a product in progress. That's what you can describe him as. I think he has a big game. I think the sophomore has a huge game, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And the reality of it is, it's just a situation where Duke is in a rebuild mode, and they're 6-2. They're not a bad football team. They just don't have what it takes at this moment. So, needless to say, this is a game that the Duke Blue Devils just need to learn from and get Malik Murphy a lot of reps, and hopefully they can keep it close. I don't think they do. But Miami and Cam Ward continue his rise to the top. And in another victory, and they go to 9-0. Number 2, Georgia against the 4-3 Florida Gators, whom, much like the Florida State Seminoles, looked like they were about to dial it in. I mean, it looked futile at one point for the Gators. But now they've grown a sense of urgency, so to speak, and they've really started to turn this thing around. Now, we already know what the deal is. I'm not even fixed to entertain this, you guys. They did get a very resounding victory over the Kentucky Wildcats, and they played the Volunteers close in Knoxville. But I think Georgia wins this running away. They're going to try to get it done and get out of town with a quick victory so that they can rest some guys and not risk any injuries. Because ultimately, they've got two more on their schedule. They got two more on their schedule that could be the difference between them hosting a playoff game and going on the road. You don't want that. But let's get to the meat and potato game. Well, I can't say this is a meat and potato game, but I will say this. If Oregon goes tippy-toeing around, Oregon facing Michigan, Michigan could give them a fight now. Now, I'm not sitting there saying Michigan I'm not saying Michigan's got a huge shot, but you got to look at it. The only game they've lost at home was to Texas. We got to think about that because last week they survived Michigan State at home. But I'm going to say that I think that was one of those trap games. They almost got beat because they were looking forward. I'm not saying that they're going to lose this game. Don't get it twisted. I'm saying that if Oregon is not careful, this could turn out to be a worst case scenario for them. Let us look at Pittsburgh and undefeated Pittsburgh at number 18 and the 20th ranked SMU, one-loss SMU Mustangs. This game is going to be a fun one. Now, whether many people understand this or not, it really doesn't matter to me. This game is going to be so much fun because as I've said many times when this team has been in the spotlight, they have handled the spotlight and they have handled it well. Now, Kevin Jennings and Brashard Smith make up probably one of the most dynamic, underrated tandems in all of college football. I absolutely love watching this team play. And it's a far contrast to what the Pitt Panthers have. Now, Eli Holston and Desmond Reed aren't the flashiest guys that you're going to watch, but what they do is they make a defense have to respect what they do. And what they do well and do exceptionally well is they play defense. And see, this is going to be a battle of wills because you're looking at a football team and SMU, they like to go up and down the field. They like to play a real high octane style of offense. It's much like watching a Texas A&M's offense, except the difference is they've got a lot of guys that can actually carry the football. And as I said before, watching this team is like watching a video game, and they being SMU. But I think ultimately Eli Holston is going to have to make some plays in this game if Pitt is going to win this game. Do I think Pittsburgh is going to get beat up? No, I don't think they'll get beat up. But I do think that they're going to have to make more plays than they've made in the past. And I'm not talking about just defensively. Now, I will say this. Do I think the Pitt Panthers defense can make some plays that could possibly go the other way? Sure, absolutely. I think that is Pitt's strength, especially their front four. But they're going to have to do a great job on containing SMU's read option. That is going to be a must. They're going to have to contain that. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. If they can't contain these guys, I say this. If they can keep the Mustangs under 28 points, they can win this game. They can win this game. This is not a game that they are by all means out of. I mean, because when you look at SMU numbers, they don't jump out at you. I mean, Jennings only has 10 touchdown passes, and Rashard Smith only has 9 touchdowns period. But SMU manages to score in opportune times. That's how they do it. And see, you look at this team, you got 59 points against Houston Christian. Their only loss was 18-15 to BYU. You got 66 points they scored against TCU, 42 against Florida State, 34 at Louisville, 40 Stanford, and 28-27 in the overtime win. And the truth of the matter is, this is a team that quietly scores their points and go about their business. However, I look at Pittsburgh, and this game is at SMU, and I will say, this is the one time I'm going against the favorite. I think the Pitt Panthers will fall to SMU. I love great defenses, you guys know this. But I got a feeling that SMU is going to make enough plays to that they win this football. I know it. I know it. They're going to say what you say, but I thought Louisville was the better team, and they managed to pull that one out. But let's look at the big one. Ohio State versus Penn State. Now, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to wonder what kind of analysis I'm going to give on this game. Because, I mean, look, here's the thing. I'm not a fan of Penn State. I love Franklin. I love this guy. I think he's a great coach. I think the problem is he's done a bad job at getting a quarterback here. I think ultimately you have to have a quarterback. And I don't understand what the issue is here. Why is it that this team cannot find a quarterback? What is the problem here? I just don't understand what the disconnect here is. Why is it that Franklin cannot get himself a quarterback that, because look, you know, we can dance around the answers and whatever, you know, and the fact is I don't understand how a program such as Penn State still cannot get a quarterback that is on that same level as the Ohio States and the Michigans. Well, not necessarily Michigans, I'm sorry. But Drew Aller, I mean, he reminds me a lot of, well, I can't even say that because he's actually played pretty decently this year. I can't even say Will Howard has been pedestrian. But, I mean, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks when they get to a certain team, they just don't have it. They just don't. I mean, we can look up and down. And I'll say this. This is something else that I can honestly say that I think's been missing from Ohio State. Now, I know they've got Travion Henderson and Kinshawn Judkins right at 500 yards apiece and 10 touchdowns. But I honestly think they need to run the ball more. To me, Ohio State, what makes Ohio State great is they have great passes when they have to have them. Now, I'm not saying they run the ball to death, but I will say this. Despite Will Howard having 17 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, I still think one of the best players in the country is Jeremiah Smith at 6'3", 215 pounds. And I know what people are going to say. They're going to say, well, he's got 35 grabs, 623 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And the reality of it is, and it goes back to what the Buckeyes had last year at quarterback. And see, this is the reality of why you want to get better. And I know people understand at the college level having a great quarterback or an elite quarterback can be the difference between you winning a national championship and sitting at home watching amongst the other teams or in watching everybody else play. But I will say this. I honestly think that the better quarterback in this game is most definitely Will Howard. Now, the question here about Drew Aller is he going to be able to play? That's the question. Is he going to be able to play? And right now, we're not sure. As I said, Drew Aller doesn't scare me. And neither does the Penn State offense. I mean, you look at this offense, and it's really pretty basic. And based on what I see, Penn State does not have enough on this offense to beat them. But the only thing they have going for them is this thing's going to be in Happy Valley. And we look at this game as a whole. I'm looking at this team and I'm saying to myself, they went into the Autzen Zoo. Now, they did get that first possession given to them. I will admit that. But it took a lot for Oregon to win that game. And the question I had to ask myself, these two teams, who's gotten better? Who's gotten better? And I've got to say Ohio State's offensive line has gotten better. Their defense has gotten better. The mistakes and miscommunications they had in that game against Oregon, they're not going to happen against Penn State because Penn State doesn't get very creative on the offensive side of the ball. They basically play the same way Iowa does, except they have a little bit better offense and a little bit better offensive line and a little bit better scheme and a little bit faster players. Outside of that, I don't see this game being a game that is, I mean, I see it being exciting possibly the first couple of minutes, but as far as being a game that is just gonna be one of those, it's gonna be it. No. I really don't see it as that. I think it's gonna be one of those games where it's just, I think Ohio State, if the Ohio State turns the ball over, that's the only way I see Penn State winning this game. And I see Penn State. I think it could be an ugly game. I really do. I think it could be one of those games that blown out of Happy Valley. But I'm taking Ohio State, and yeah, I don't see this game being very close. So, but let me know which game you guys are looking forward to seeing. Also, comment down here which game are you looking forward to. What did I miss? Please don't comment on the sound. I will get my mic fixed tomorrow. But comment on who you like, and if there's a team I did not say. Now remember, this is top 25, Natasha. So Oklahoma didn't play anybody. I don't think they played this week anyway. But needless to say, if there's a team you want me to cover every week, and you become a gabber, put it down in the comments, and I will stay with your squad. Also, don't forget to check out the Facebook, Gridiron Gab Triple Option, as well as go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo, find out the other things that I'm involved in, and make sure you start following me because there's going to be things and other things you can get involved in. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.